Welcome to Geektionary. My name's Corey Hales, and this is the geekiest podcast you'll probably ever hear, where I will try to teach you, along with my friends, about the nerdier things in life. Let's talk about it. Okay, so this is episode K for James Tiberius Kirk, and I was explaining to someone that I was doing K and that we were doing Captain Kirk, and their first question was like, Captain with a K, and when people make those kinds of jokes, it's never funny, and it's so fucking depressing.
It's hurtful, really.
Yeah, it's like punching me in the dick or something.
Your sense of humor punches me in the dick on a daily basis.
Yeah.
Can't listen to you for fear of the damage to my cock.
So me and Eric were talking about Captain Kirk and the topic of the podcast and all that, and there's really not a lot to say, and there's probably a bunch of people now that are, if they're fans of Star Trek, are probably furious already, but
we'll rile them up further.
Yeah, he was a guy, two-fisted space man of justice.
Yep.
And that's what he did for his time in the Federation. That's kind of about it. It was
punched Klingons, sexed up alien babes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That we were talking about Mass Effect and how you made Captain Kirk in there. Explain that for a sec.
Okay, well, first off, I'm not the best person to be interviewed on this one because I don't know a lot about Kirk. Yeah. So bear that in mind. We, my friend and I, he just bought Mass Effect 2, and he decided, he was like, I want to make a character in this. How should I play out his life?
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, be Kirk. Be James Tiberius Kirk.
The ultimate spaceman.
Yeah, and he just stared at me with a blank look and went, I don't know how I'm doing that. Okay. Prioritize having sex with aliens.
Mm-hmm. Punch people.
Punch as many people as you can. Do things generally for the right, but you're allowed to use very questionable means. Mm-hmm. The ends always justify the means.
Yeah. With Mass Effect, I told you how I made a virulent... I like that word a lot when I'm using it.
Yeah.
Virulent speciesist. Who, if it was human, they were always right. It didn't matter. Anything like that. So if they were against an alien, then the human was right. Just because the aliens are always wrong doesn't mean you can't have sex with them, though, because that's what they're good for.
They're just objects for my sexual fantasy.
Yeah, it was...
Not for speaking.
It was really fun. If the council, or whatever they were, starts giving me shit and it's one of the aliens, it's like, you weren't there, you don't know, or just hang up the conversation. It was pretty great. And actual facts, I had notes, and I was explaining to Eric also that I immediately forgot them once I reminded myself to not forget them. I remember a little bit. James T. Kirk was born in Riverside, Iowa in 2233. He beat the Kobayashi Maru and became one of the youngest captains of any sort of Federation ship ever. The Kobayashi Maru was supposed to be an unwinnable thing, but as anyone who's seen the new Star Trek movie knows, Kirk doesn't play by anyone's rules.
Nope.
He's a man who...
He's a rebel.
He does what he feels is right.
He lives on the edge.
And he hacked that motherfucker. And he won the Kobayashi Maru. And in the remake movie, it made it seem like, oh, this is terrible, because that is cheating.
Yeah.
And he was not... he did not apologize. He was just like, yeah, I cheated. Who gives a shit? And...
Fuck you!
I feel like the Shatner version of Kirk, they were probably just like, that showed great ingenuity. Well done. Because, I don't know. I haven't seen a lot of the old Kirk Star Trek, but to me it always, I get the impression that Kirk could do what he wanted, and yes, the Federation were always just like, you shouldn't do that, he did it anyway. But then the worst he would ever get would be someone wagging their finger at him.
Stop that. Slap on the wrist.
Don't do that again. Kirk's just like, fuck you.
And please stop giving weapons to warring factions on alien worlds.
That's not helping. That's just... You're making things
Put
so
them
much
on level
worse.
footing, but you've escalated the conflict.
Yeah. Yes.
Just because you give both sides nuclear weapons doesn't necessarily mean that's the best course of action.
Yeah, it's just like, hey, remember the Cold War? How horrible that was? Let's give these people up to that point right now. And yeah.
Well, I mean, that might have been. I'm sure it was fairly influential during the writing of that thing, because
Oh yeah.
I don't know when that episode took place, but
It was in the 60s.
yeah, sometime in the 60s. But
The series ran from 66 to 69, and then the movies he was in every movie 1 through, I think, 7, and then they made the remake where he was back, even as Chris Pine as opposed to Shatner, obviously.
yeah,
And who do you prefer, Shatner or Pine as Kirk?
I don't know, because I'm honestly about as familiar with both, but I gotta go Shatner.
Yeah.
I think I just love William Shatner. It's just-
Shatner's pretty great. He's,
when I think about a man who punches people to justice in space and explores and sleeps with alien women, Shatner's who comes to mind. It's not Chris Pine.
I always wondered regarding the sex with the alien women, though. It seems to me very strange that, one, every alien race was essentially human, but with projections on their face. Or weird, like black on one side, white on the other.
Yeah, different colors.
Yeah, and apparently all the parts lined up every time.
Yeah.
And all the parts worked the same way.
Yeah.
Except, like, I think maybe the only real difference is that Kirk couldn't get these alien women pregnant, which to him was just like catnip. He's just like, how can I not? How can I not fuck them?
I have to do it.
Yes. They'll never call me up for child support. This is fantastic.
That's why I joined the Starfleet in the first place. No. Can hear people in the background already.
It's like, how dare you sully the name of Kirk? But yeah, you know, he's. Would you consider Star Trek is still relevant? I have to say, because like people still like it. It's still good. They're making the new series on the in movies and stuff. But at the same time, we had to wonder, like, because Shatner was Kirk. Yes, Chris Pine's the new one, but Shatner is and always will be Kirk.
Absolutely, yeah.
Shatner, is he relevant? Do you think?
I think his relevancy is waning now that there's a new Kirk, really, and Shatner hasn't really done a whole lot other than cameos as far as I've seen.
Yeah.
And maybe this will... There's some diehard Shatner fans up in there who are coming to my house with pitchforks and torches right now.
Yeah.
But
I know he was in Boston Legal. Like, he still works steadily, but the thing is, one of the parts of his appeal is the fact that, hey, it's that cheesy guy.
yeah.
Like, he's always cheesy, and it's, I don't know, kind of good and kind of bad. You know, he's been able to make a career out of it, so in the long run, it is good.
Yeah.
I assume he enjoys what he's doing, even though he...
Yeah.
You heard about what he said to the Trekkies, though, right?
No.
Like, years ago, he told them to get a life. Yeah, he's like, yes, I did this. Who gives a shit? Why do you care so much?
Move on!
Yeah. One thing about being a geek, obviously Star Trek has to come into it, and that, you know, Shatner telling these geeks to get a life. I don't know if there's anything that I'm that obsessed with that it becomes my be-all, my end-all in life, you know? Closest thing might be zombies, but that's really waning.
Well, that's fair.
Do you have anything... Oh, fuck. Do you have anything that's kind of a very, very important part of your life that doesn't really have any genuine
Nothing that's
importance?
terribly important. Sort of like something I follow with obsessive fandom.
Yeah. Maybe Andrew WK.
Yeah, I devote my life to Andrew WK.
Party till you puke and all that, yeah.
Actually, that was the hoodie I was wearing, was an Andrew WK one.
Nice.
Maybe Andrew WK, actually.
Yeah. A while ago, me and Eric were talking about... I can't remember what it was, but I ended up sending Andrew WK an email, which I never got a response to, and I'm still kind of bummed about it, was that asking him his definition of party and stuff like that, and if we could get a picture of him in a lab coat and glasses.
Yeah, it was for... we were going to do a research experiment on partying, and we wanted a precise definition of what partying was.
Yeah. I sent it to him as if it was like... as if he was a doctor. I was a fellow scientist. It was pretty great.
Yeah.
Oh, every now and then you might hear my voice kind of change. That's because I'm drinking port. And it's getting better with each drink, but it's still it's really harsh grape juice essentially.
I offer only the worst to people who have
It looks classy, it's not. Mm-hmm. And one thing about sort of related, me and Eric have been in a beard competition. On Friday it'll be 6 months.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, and most beard competitions, I did research, most beard competitions end up lasting about 10 days. So I've decided that I wanted to quit. Eric he agreed with that, but so Eric will win for endurance because, he didn't bring up the quitting.
Yeah.
But I think, and I'm pretty much, it's less about thinking, more I know. I think I kind of won the turn in quality.
It is a higher quality beard.
It's thicker, it's fuller, it's soft. It's weirdly soft.
Mine's wiry and awful, and it's like running your hands through steel wool.
Brillo pads and stuff, yeah.
Actually, Brillo pad's a pretty dead-on description of my beard.
Kirk has had a beard, hasn't he?
Alternate universe Kirk had a beard.
Yeah, did he have he was the evil goatee, right?
Yeah, they had
that's where that fucking cliche came from. The evil twins have the goddamn goatee. Yeah. I can picture Spock with the goatee.
I think Spock had I don't remember because I didn't see the episode. I researched it.
I feel like at one point Kirk might have been abandoned on an ice planet and he grew a beard because it was practical.
I could see that.
And he punched people and probably had sex with a female prisoner.
Ice people.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could see all that.
Yeah.
But no, the alternate universe thing I was reading about, it was, they had a malfunction in their transporter transporting the away team, which included Kirk and...
Bones.
Kirk, Spock, Bones is probably on there.
Yeah. And then a red shirt.
Probably a red shirt or two. I don't know the whole group that was on there, but they transported them down. Mm-hmm. And then something went terribly wrong, and they transported them down into an alternate dimension. Yeah. And then they came into conflict with alternate universe Kirk and alternate universe Spock. Okay. And they were basically bizarro versions of them. All right. I don't know if it was a mirror universe or just an alternate universe, because I think it was the mirror universe, because there wasn't Starfleet, it was the Terran Empire. Oh, okay. Yeah. It wasn't the USS Enterprise, it was the ISS. I don't know what the I stood for.
Interplanetary?
It could be.
What does USS... Is it United States ship? Like, we have the USS
I don't know.
Destroyers and stuff? I don't know if the last S actually stands for ship, but like HMS, USS, Her Majesty's ship. Yeah. United States ship.
Could be. Yeah. Could be. I know... Yeah, I don't know what the S ends... There. Yeah. Suppose I could have looked into that.
Anyways, alternate universe.
Alternate universe. So, yeah. In this universe, Kirk is a sadist, and Spock is a very angry guy, from what I remember. Yeah? Yeah. Like, he's not the cold, calculating person. He's quick to fury, and it seems like both of them are quick to fury, but that doesn't seem wildly out of place for Kirk. Like, no. It does. It's not that anyone who looks at him funny, he will put his fist in their teeth. Yeah. But he's not... If something crosses him the wrong way, you'll know.
Oh, yeah. He's not one to hide his emotions.
No.
When you said Spock being quick to anger, I just imagined him every time going on that elevator thing, just, fuck! Punching a wall, and then just opens up, acting all calm and cool. I guess nothing happened. I am Spock.
I'm Spock.
Yeah.
Spock with a beard.
Yeah, with a stylish goatee.
Yeah, I never found out how that episode resolved itself, though.
Oh, Kirk probably punched anti-Kirk, and that was like, oh shit, we better go.
Into a fist fight, got back in the transporter, and something worked itself out again.
Yeah. One thing regarding Kirk that I can never, ever forget, and don't want to, is him fighting the Gorn. It's one of the most famous scenes. The Gorn was a guy in a reptile suit, and the guy playing the Gorn couldn't really see out of his mask at all, and that's why the fight looks so fucking stupid.
Oh, I know the fight you're talking about.
Yeah, it's just
back in my mind.
This guy is a Gorn kind of stumbling around, Kirk going up, like punching it, throws a rock at it, nothing happens, and then the Gorn falls down. It's if you're listening to this, YouTube, fucking loudest chair in the world, YouTube Kirk versus Gorn, and you'll be very, very pleased. Also, while you're on YouTube, look up the melodica cover of the Jurassic Park theme.
Absolutely.
Because if you're having a bad day, that will save you. That will, oh god, it's amazing.
Every time I listen to that, I'm in tears at the end. I think it's just amazing.
Mm-hmm. Still suffering from port right now.
Yeah. It needs to sit out in the open a day.
Yes, it needs
in the hot sun.
Like mayonnaise.
Yeah, exactly.
And yeah.
Bad port is like a good mayonnaise. You need to leave it out in the sun for at least a day.
When you bite into a sandwich, it should feel like a warm summer's day in your mouth.
Yeah.
Ugh. You mentioned he's from Riverside, Iowa. I don't remember if I mentioned the tombstone they have there saying, like, future birthplace of James T. Kirk. That's still not for 121 years.
Well...
That's a long time.
I can't guarantee it, but I'm sure Star Trek will still have a fan base by then. Maybe.
Yeah.
Because it's one of those... Well,
Casablanca still has a fan base.
That's true.
That's not quite 100 years.
No, but it's coming up on this.
It's getting there.
In the next 30 or
I don't know, it was made... When was that made? Because,
I thought it was in the 50s.
So it's almost half of what we're... until... Like, it's almost 60 years.
Yeah.
Half of what... Star Trek will probably live on, maybe not as strong, maybe it'll have, like, a huge resurgence. That would be weird, but,
I could see it happening, though.
Yeah, I feel like, regardless of if it's being popular or not, on the day that Kirk was born, if any babies in that town are born, the majority of them will be named James.
I could see a lot of James.
Maybe the middle name would be Kirk, and then last name, whatever the last name is. Yeah. James Kirk Smith or something. Okay, so, you're not a Trekkie, I'm not a Trekkie. Who is the better captain, Kirk or Picard?
See, I've always been more of an Enterprise guy, but Kirk.
I just thought of something before we move on and continue this line of conversation.
This is going to turn into a bloodbath really quick.
Kirk plus Picard becomes Kirkard, which is like Kierkegaard. So maybe that means nothing. I'm going to go ahead and say it does. But
it's very possible that's meaningless.
I've always liked Picard better. When I was growing up, my mom watched TNG, Next Generation.
Yeah.
So that was the captain I grew up with. Yeah, I've always preferred Picard. I think it might also be because he's British, and that makes it a bit more classy.
Yeah, he's the suave captain.
He plays trombone? Or is that Riker? Sex Bomb Riker?
Sex Bomb.
Yeah.
I don't think it's Riker. I'm pretty sure Picard plays an instrument. I don't remember.
He plays flute. I know he plays the flute. Yeah. I used to play trombone.
But you're not Riker.
No, I'm not. I'm not a sex bomb. I do have a beard.
Trimmed down. Yeah, I was gonna say the beard. You could be Riker. Never mind.
I'll soon be closer to standard Riker beard when I trim this down to professor levels.
Yeah.
But yeah.
That'll be about Riker level. Riker level beards.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I was always more of a... I think I just said I was more of an Enterprise guy.
Yeah.
I think I meant to say Next Generation.
Yeah.
I was always more of a Next Generation guy. That's the one I'm the most of.
Mm-hmm.
And then Deep Space Nine for a bit, and I understand why people don't like it as much, but I kind of liked some of it.
The thing... Sorry, continue.
I've only met one person, I think, who's loved Deep Space Nine more than every other one. So for me, it was mostly Next Generation and Voyager.
Voyager was the one with...
Captain Janeway.
Yeah, and you're the only one I know who liked that. I watched it regularly, and I enjoyed it too, but yeah, lots of people are just like, fuck Janeway.
Janeway can burn in hell.
She sucks! And, I think one thing about Next Generation versus the original Star Trek was to me it seemed more dramatic, it seemed more, political than like, let's go to that planet, punch the monster, and make gunpowder.
Yeah.
For the people. Yeah, like, they followed the Prime Directive a bit more. The Prime Directive, I think, was not to interfere with any civilizations that didn't have space travel yet. Something like that.
Yeah.
Like, don't stir the pot, essentially.
Exactly.
And,
don't give them a bunch of rifles, Kirk.
Yeah, if the Klingons give them rifles, don't retaliate. 2 wrongs don't make a right.
They just make the Cold War.
Kirk's like, what the fuck did those Klingons do? Oh, fuck that.
Show them. I'll show them all.
But Kirk, the Klingons are doing it for peace. No,
I'm not having those weird foreheaded fucks show me up.
Yeah.
Because apparently in my mind, Kirk was also a racist. Or speciesist, I guess it would be.
Sort of.
No.
He liked Vulcans. Him and Spock were buddies.
That's true.
They were bosom buddies, BFFs.
Yep. Best friends for real.
They had promise rings.
Promise rings and purity rings.
Yeah, purity rings too.
They were just covered in all sorts of meaningful jewelry.
I can't remember the comedian's name. I think his first name's Kevin, but I might be confusing it because he was in the movie The Usual Suspects with Kevin Spacey. But he's the one who's kind of, if people do an impression of Captain Kirk, they're doing an impression of this guy doing an impression of Captain Kirk. Because Captain Kirk, like, every time, if you've never seen the show or a movie with Captain Kirk, you've heard the impression where it's just like, Starlog, 1843. Just the long pauses, and every now and then coming, like, saying a word as if you've just discovered it.
Yeah.
It's just like, on the planet there were these trees, and just like it. Like, all those impressions are based on the one comedian. But you listen to actual Captain Kirk, and he's just like, Starlog, 1847. When we went to the planets, he's just like, small pauses, but like, it's more...
It's not as wildly exaggerated. Yeah.
If Captain Kirk actually spoke like that, how long do you think that show would have lasted? What if that was how William Shatner really spoke?
Oh, man. I'd be madly in love with... He wouldn't have gotten the same success, I don't think. But I think if you were to remake Star Trek now, and it hadn't existed previously, and he talked like that, I think it would do much better now with him talking like that. Everything else the same, just him talking like that, because
like,
there'd be that comedy aspect to it.
In that world, do you think there would Star Trek already exist, or would this just be kind of like a satire of that? Would like in this scenario, you're saying, is Star Trek completely new, and they're just starting out with a character who talks like that?
Yes.
I don't know how that.
It would succeed in my books.
It would succeed more now than it would if they revealed it in the 60s.
Yeah.
But
maybe they should do a gritty reboot where...
a gritty reboot. Everything's in grays and browns. People are dying constantly, and there's this guy like, son of a bitch, I don't know. Just like,
there's so much blood on my hands. That was more Christopher Walken.
Spock, I killed a child, and he looked at me in the eyes. The thing about that is that prior to becoming cast as Kirk, Shatner was a fairly respected Shakespearean actor here in Canada.
Yeah.
Which I think helped bring the gravitas that he had in Star Trek.
Yeah.
But again, there are pauses in any Shakespearean play because it's drama.
Yeah.
And then Star Trek probably exposed a lot of people who would have never seen any sort of... I'm talking sort of like a realistic Captain Kirk having weird inflections. But I think it exposed a lot of people to the idea of the dramatic pause, which Kirk may have abused.
He did use an awful lot of them. I was going to go somewhere with that, but I've totally fallen off there.
Yeah. This the problem with doing Kirk as a subject. This is getting a bit meta because I'm referring to the podcast, but who gives a shit?
Yeah.
The problem with doing Kirk is that, like I think we said it at the very beginning, there's not a lot to say.
Yeah.
He's a straightforward character. He's the two-fisted science man. Well, not science. Two-fisted.
Explorer. He's an adventurer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he has adventures. And, like, Picard, because he's the other real person that people compare him to, he was a captain.
Yeah.
He was also big into exploring, but he was also big into, like, diplomacy. And
exactly, yeah.
Yeah, whereas Kirk was just like, what's that? Oh, shit, let's fight it. And again, I must reiterate, I have seen maybe 3 episodes of the actual Star Trek. I've seen Wrath of Khan.
I've seen Wrath of Khan years and
years ago. I saw the riff tracks of Wrath of Khan.
But that was a good one.
Oh, it was funny, yeah. I love riff tracks.
That might be some of the appeal of Kirk, though, versus Picard. And I hadn't really thought about it before, but it makes perfect sense. And I'm sure there's other people out there who've already made this discovery, because it's not amazing.
Yeah.
Kirk is the adventurer. He is the Indiana Jones of space.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, he's a captain because...
He shoots first. He was the first Han Solo.
He was the first Han Solo, absolutely.
I've made more people angry.
You've just... Yeah, no, that's... There's a blood feud coming your way, my friends.
From one of the 60 listeners I get regularly.
That's okay. One of them is a diehard Trekkie, and they are coming for you.
And the other one is a...
59 dedicated listeners.
Yeah, you've just lost a good 1% of your listenership. Ah, shit. Yeah. If I can, I really, like, okay, in terms of the actual radio station... Did I tell you that they have a new show hosted by a Wiccan, and it's called From Wicked to Wicca?
That sounds kind of interesting.
Well, and this is something I don't understand. I've always had an issue with Wicca. I think it's the idea of that, just the fact that they believe in actual magic. I understand people that believe in angels is just as bad. And I do have a problem with that as well, but I remember once...
Dedicated listeners just falling off.
Yeah, I'm just murdering my listenership. Bad-mouthing... well, it's not bad-mouthing, just raising questions.
Yeah, don't you dare. So far you've lost your...
The Star Trek listener.
The Star Trek listener.
Star Wars listener.
Star Wars listener. Well, maybe.
Maybe.
I don't know. Yeah.
Well, Han Solo.
Han Solo compared to
I've
Kirk.
sullied the name of Solo.
It could be.
Yeah.
That is a tender subject. You've lost your Wiccan audience. Your Wiccan demographic.
Which, if it was actually a substantial part, I think that would turn around my admittedly pointless dislike of Wiccans compared to others. But I remember once growing up in Cranbrook, small town that I'm from, population about the same population as the university I went to, which is pretty bad. I went to Safeway, and there was a person in the middle of summer dressed as a witch. They had the cowl, they had the cape, and they were going around, and I just saw them at Safeway. I'm like, what are you... Like, I didn't say this to them, but in my head, I'm just like, what are you doing? There are people here. How can you do that to yourself?
How embarrassed are you?
Yeah, you're a bad person, aren't you?
You've lost your Wiccan demographic.
See,
that was 30 listeners.
I shouldn't be drinking port and talking about Star Trek, apparently, if I'm doing my podcast.
We're going to fall into the Drunken Kirk podcast. We'll have to axe all of this and then restart from the beginning, more drunk than we did before.
I did, however... to hopefully win back some of those Wiccan listeners that are still listening and seething, I went to a nerd apparel store, and I bought a Planet Express t-shirt, awesome. I bought a Flash trucker cap, awesome. And I got a Joker... What are those necklaces that people have cards and keys and stuff on them? Lanyard. Yes, I had that. And so... I got into a long conversation with with the person that was working there. It ended up being like 2 to 2.5 hours.
Oh, wow.
Someone I'd never met before. That doesn't happen with me. And then as the conversation was going on, a friend of hers who worked at like a Radio Shack or something in the mall came by, and he asked earlier on, was like, "Hey, when I leave, can you give me a ride?" I was like, "Yeah, sure," because like I'm not scared of this little smelly guy. Like, he stunk. But that was my one problem. As we're leaving, he's just like, man, I've been having this cough all day, and the weirdest thing is all my elements are in order. And I just gave him this look like, what the fuck did you just say? And he's just like, oh, I'm Wiccan. And I'm just like, well, he's a nice guy. Dropped him off at the train station and then drove home thinking to myself, you know what? I did an amazing good deed. I looked past my senseless bigotry and helped out someone whose elements weren't quite in order.
Towards Wiccans.
Yeah, I've sent the olive branch forward.
Yeah. After years of hatred.
Years of senseless hatred. Absolutely pointless dislike. They're not, to me, in terms of religion and stuff, they're not at the bottom of the barrel. Places like the Raelians or Scientologists are.
Raelians, yeah, I know Scientology very well.
Raelians are kind of a sex cult that believes that humankind are an experiment made by aliens. And a French race car driver, whose last name was Rael, was the first one that was contacted by the aliens.
Oh.
Hence Raelians. And yeah, he's got... yeah, I'm not going to get into that.
All right.
Yeah, it's a sex cult.
Sounds like people Kirk would have sex with.
Yeah.
From a different planet, yeah.
There's a planet of people.
And we've segued back in.
Yes, exactly. Well done. Kirk would just be like, I've come down to be your sex Jesus. And just, yeah. I think I'm about done with my horrible Kirk impression.
It's going to pop up.
Yeah.
The further down in that glass of port you get, the more Kirk is going to come out.
Yeah, I am feeling it. And like I said, each drink, not as bad as the last.
That's true.
Means that I'm getting into the happily buzzed. Kirk should be, in my mind, like, he is a very important part of pop culture. I think, even with the weird halting impressions that people do, he should be, I think, in my mind, a bit more respected.
Yeah.
If not for the if not for the actual, like, acting and method and all that, because he was originally described as being fairly wooden, which you can easily see. The thing is that and he was the captain of a TV show that changed science fiction, it changed culture as well. The majority of scientists that are working towards, like, science fiction-y type things go off of Star Trek.
Absolutely.
Like, they're trying to make the tricorder, which can diagnose people. That you can get apps that do a lot of what the tricorder could do back then. And the interface looks just as terrible as it did on the TV show. Weird shapes of colors and no explanation. But, like, yeah, people are able to actually do this and make things that can detect pollutants in the air. They can detect this. They can be translators. They can do all sorts of things. And transporting and holodecks and the food machine that they had. Replicator.
Yes.
Replicator. Yeah.
Teleportation and all that.
Yeah, and a lot of modern advances in science are because of Star Trek.
Absolutely.
Much less Star Wars. Star Wars is also very important, but that was pretty much just like ships that fly and laser guns.
Yeah.
That was kind of their science.
Yeah, they didn't get into the... I think that's... Like, Star Trek had a lot more to do with the science end of it.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas Star Wars seemed to be more about the story. And I'm not saying that the story in Star Trek was bad.
No.
They had their questionable moments.
The trouble with tribbles.
The trouble with tribbles was one of those questionable moments. But they were very more, like, even if they were just making up the terms for everything like that, they were still trying to explain the science behind it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think one of the things I think is really interesting about Star Trek is, and Shatner actually did his own series on this, was William Shatner, How I Changed the World. And he was covering new technologies that they were developing and stuff like that. And it was all stuff that they had done in Star Trek.
Mm-hmm.
Like they're working on the tricorder. They've done the what is it? The
holodeck, transporter, replicator, phaser. Set phasers to stun.
I was probably thinking communicator or something like that.
The translator.
The translator.
I have 2 apps on my phone that can translate languages.
Yeah.
I don't know why I have 2. But they were free.
Yeah.
And so
that's probably why.
Yeah.
But there's also, like, NASA's just announced that they've started working on a warp drive.
Oh, really?
Which blew me away because they said that the basic design for it had been done in the 90s, like 1997, but it would require what was it? A mass energy equivalent to Pluto.
Oh wow!
So I think it's I mean, I'm not the sciencey sort of person really, but yeah, the mass energy of Pluto, and they've said that they've reworked some of the designs, and with the newer technologies that they have, it's become a lot more feasible. Okay. Like they've said that now they have all that would require to make that energy leap would be something equivalent to the mass energy of the Voyager 1 spacecraft. So that's a completely feasible option now at this point.
Yeah,
you don't have to collapse a planet in order to disrupt space-time enough to travel through it.
Teleportation is something that people can do.
Yeah.
That makes it sound like people, not science. But yeah, scientists are able to really teleport things. However, right now it's very, very minuscule amounts
or enormous energy. Sort
of yeah, like the tip of a pencil.
Yeah.
Or
your elements.
Data. People are not Data the character. Data the character is awesome.
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
Yeah, it's
Star Trek est génial.
There we go. Star Trek is awesome in French.
Yeah.
Yeah. My boss is sort of, well, my radio station boss, the guy who doesn't pay me. He's French, so that was a very, very poor shout out to him. So, but yeah, it's Star Trek. Yeah, Star Wars was based on an old samurai story, and
that I didn't know.
Yeah, George Lucas steals a lot of his ideas.
Yeah. Let's continue to alienate those two listeners.
Well, nobody likes George Lucas anymore.
No,
he fails. And
Han shot first.
Yes,
Han is always shot first.
Fuck's sake, he shot first. But one thing is that it's if you look at it that way, and you look at if you can easily take Star Trek or Star Wars and turn it into a samurai movie, a western, anything like that, because
true.
You replace the spaceships with horses or wagons, or trains.
Your hero was the young and inexperienced cowboy, or the young, maybe inexperienced or arrogant samurai or whatever.
Yeah, Solo he's a thief and a smuggler. That does not require space travel.
Nope.
And there's a princess who could just be like who's the leader of a whorehouse? The madam. She could be, or just be the fucking mayor's daughter.
Exactly.
Yeah, like it's and Star Trek, however, doesn't really. You can do it in terms of like taking the genre and turning it into a western type of thing, but it doesn't move as easily. You'd have to make more changes simply because of the actual use of aliens. Star Wars was almost entirely humans, it seemed.
Yes.
In terms of important characters.
Well,
Greedo could be replaced with a Mexican. Jabba could be replaced with a Mexican.
The thing I found about
the Sarlacc pit could be replaced with a town of Mexicans, known for eating people who enter their town.
You've lost your Mexican demographic. Axing one person at a time. But I think what's interesting about that is if you look at it, Star Wars is sort of, I mean, as Star Trek was accepting, but there was, I mean, meeting new species and on new planets and stuff like that was a driving factor. New civilizations and exploring the interactions with like our future utopia, mixed with like reflections sort of our past selves or and whatnot like that. Whereas in Star Wars, everyone's on the same playing field. Everyone's part of the same civilization. Like there's different towns with different rules and stuff like that. But it'd be like if I left here to go to Quebec, and everyone's on the same page. Like all the Greedo and Jabba.
Quebec, that notorious hive of scum and villainy.
We've lost our Quebec.
We've lost my boss. That's right. But yeah, I know what you're saying. And another thing also, this is something huge about Star Trek. It was one of the first, if not the first, TV show to have a multiracial cast. All of which were extremely important. Sulu being Japanese.
Absolutely.
Fucking, Chekhov, Russian, especially during the Cold War.
Yeah, yeah.
This was like Uhura, black.
Yeah.
One of the blacks.
Yeah.
and it was such a new idea. Oh, Scotty, of the most repressed of all races, the Scottish.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was it was such a. It's not just the science; it also changed culture in the sense that, like, oh, I can talk to a Japanese person and we can have things in common.
Yeah.
Even if he's shirtless and fighting people with a sword, like he did occasionally in the original series. But yeah, it was something that is so important, and that when you start looking at Star Trek more and Kirk less, it is very important. But if it wasn't for Kirk, there would have been no Star Trek.
Yeah, exactly. So
And the pilot of Star Trek didn't have Kirk. It had a completely separate character whose name I can't recall at the moment, but that character did make an appearance. Have you ever at least seen the image of the Star Trek episode with the guy in the big kind of black box and the little light that would beep on and off?
I have.
That was the original pilot. That actor and that character was the original pilot of the USS Enterprise. And, yeah, I really think that without Shatner, specifically Shatner as Kirk,
Yeah.
Star Trek would never have become the thing that it is today.
Yeah, and this is me taking it back to Star Wars versus Star Trek, and focusing on Kirk, which is what the podcast is about. But the hell with all that.
Yeah.
Nuts to your rules. I will bang that alien babe.
Mm-hmm.
But Star Wars, great series of movies. The original 3,
There you
great series of movies.
Thank you.
No, I do like episode 1.
That pod race scene was pretty cool.
Yeah.
And that was about
Pod
it.
races.
Anyways.
But anyway.
Yeah.
I digress from my digression.
Mm-hmm.
Star Wars, the original 3 anyway, great series of movies.
Yeah.
That's about as far as it goes. A great classic story, just in space.
Mhm.
And it's great. And all that, before all the changes and whatnot, like Sarlacc having a beak tongue thing.
Yeah.
That upset me deeply. That
Yeah.
upset me so very deeply. More so than hand shooting first, to be honest with you.
Really?
Because I'm like, alright. Because I didn't even notice the first time I watched through the varied version. I just assumed he shot first again. Because it didn't even occur to me why you would change that. But then the Sarlacc beak thing came out and started snatching people out of the air, and I'm like, why?
Yeah, it didn't need to happen.
Why? There's no good reason. Like, the hand thing I almost understand from a deranged Lucas' point of view. Like, no, I have to make Han the good guy. He has to...
Yeah.
He can't shoot first. No, he has to be a man of honor. I'm retconning my own story.
Yeah.
That's been released and been treasured for years.
Yeah, as it was.
Yeah.
As opposed to going back, let's change everything.
Yeah. But the beak thing, I couldn't for the life of me figure out. It was like he was just changing things for the sake of changing them.
Yeah.
But anyway, the original 3, great series of movies. Star Trek, well, it didn't... I'm bumping the mic all over the place.
Yeah.
But Star Trek, well, I mean, you can argue yes or no, acting quality, whatever. It doesn't matter. They were more... Star Trek caused, like, a cultural and a scientific movement.
Mm-hmm.
That's immense.
Star Wars started a cultural movement, but it's a lot less... It's not that it's less, it was just different. Like, Star Wars is... in terms of culture, what has it really changed, though? Not a lot.
Yeah.
Like, everyone's just like... People are either like, yay, Star Wars, boo, Star Wars. But with Star Trek's just like, oh, other races are okay.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, science is important.
Yeah, and interesting. And fun.
Yeah.
And required for exploring the galaxy and finding alien babes.
Yeah, and the philosophy of the Federation, not to interfere with certain types of cultures, not to do this, not to do that, is a very good philosophy. And if there was an actual space exploration thing that dealt with aliens, that would probably be a very good thing to follow.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't think we would. I think be like,
No.
there's this tribal culture on this planet, but it's filled with oil. Well, I guess we're going to commit genocide again.
Yes, we can bend the rules.
Yeah.
It's filled with unobtainium.
Yeah.
Ah!
Yeah.
Segue into a movie I didn't care for.
I think it's about time to wrap it up. But yeah, in summation, Captain Kirk, very important. Sulu, very important. He came up once, but yeah. Photon torpedoes are... I don't know. Terrible. No, I'm I'm taking that out. Oh, that was awful. Anyways, but yeah, Star Trek. I actually having talked about this, I kind of want to watch Star Trek now.
Me too.
Yeah.
Should have watched it beforehand.
Yeah, well,
in my mind.
that would have been responsible.
Yeah.
It also would have been responsible for me to bring my goddamn notes.
And for us to not be drinking port during this interview.
Yeah.
Maybe.
But I think good way to celebrate sandwiches.
Sandwiches is a good way to celebrate.
Good way to celebrate a good podcast. Sandwiches, which are extremely difficult to eat with a beard. But anyways, that has been Geektionary.